So, today I was going through some things. I was looking for stuff. And I found a box of old photos. And when I went and visited my dad the week before his birthday, I was telling my sister Katie about the time that my grandfather took me up north. And as a retirement gift, he had gotten a 35 millimeter Vivitar camera. And it had a panoramic feature. And we were taking pictures of the bridge. And he was an amateur photographer who actually did have pictures that were published. And I had to have been around 8. And I took these pictures, and my grandpa was trying to show me about how I should come back below the trees so that the branches of the tree would frame the picture that I was taking. And because I was 8 years old, I didn't understand. And he was just annoying me, and then he got angry with me because I wasn't understanding. And then he just let me do my thing. And most of these pictures are practically identical. And a grown adult, I took, to give you an idea how young I was, I took a picture of the hotel pool in panoramic. And that is Lake Michigan. Wow. My lack of vision here is very, very apparent. So, for roughly 12 years, I have held on, or 22 years, I have held on to these. And I was telling my sister about just adventures with my papa. And I was pleasantly surprised. I was really glad to find that they weren't in our basement, because we've had a few leaks down there. But this photo album completely stopped me in my tracks. And it made me sad. And I'm trying to offer my pain up to the Lord, because I know that he is no longer in pain, and our Father has called him home. And it is selfish for me to wish he was here, and I will see him again. But I do really miss him. His home was the most stable home I ever had in my whole life. It was where I always ended up. And it's indoor, and he took this picture. This sign was put up in roughly 1996, 1997. The sign was brand new, and it was put up while I was living in Texas. And I was homesick for my grandpa and my grandma. And so he sent me this photo album to remind me that they were thinking of me, and to ease my pain. So that is my grandma and grandpa, and that is their church photo. That is the photo that they had put in the church directory. And while I was gone, my grandfather built these boxes, window boxes. My grandparents' favorite color is red. This, I don't think it might still be in the yard. This is like in the middle of the front yard, and you will notice the perfect lawnmower strokes. His lawn was his pride and joy. But sometime after we moved back to Michigan, a rose bush, he had a yellow rose bush planted in memory of my cousin Tommy in this very strange flower garden, like directly in the middle of their front yard. 20 years. It has been my responsibility to keep track of it, and it has been through a ridiculous of moves, including moves from state to state. These, I was never real pleased that he did this. This used to all be like this. He planted the marigolds. I wanted flowers. Because I complained. This is my very young self. Because our garden was so green and there was no color and I didn't like it. Being as my grandfather was an artist and a photographer, he agreed that we needed color. I have no idea why he did. Because he used to plant squash, actually, along that wall. And then I would be forced to give. My bus driver, Rusty Dukavich, whose husband, Dick Dukavich, owned Dick's Market. And if anybody lives near Door, you will see the Right to Life boards, and I'm pretty sure that Rusty Dukavich has a big part to do. I know many of those she has seen to constructing and having put up. So, if she's still kicking around, I hope so. I really loved her. This is the flower garden that my mom and I planted. Oh, sorry about the for Mother's Day for my grandma. And sorry. It might still be there. I'm not sure. I think while we were gone, my grandfather took it over because my grandma couldn't get out and do it, and he put what he wanted in there. And those are his hanging baskets. But initially my mom and I dug it out and we planted it with my grandma's favorite flowers so that she could enjoy them. And here is it from the other side. My grandfather had the exact same hanging baskets. He had 3 of them hanging from his garage. Every year, exact same red flowers. And 2 years ago, I added one of these to the planter that is on his grave because I knew he would enjoy them. And this, many of you have heard of me talk about the garden that when I was a teenager, we're talking 13 years old until I was 16 or 17 and had a baby, or 16 and had a baby. This garden I weeded for the last 4 years by myself. That is a lot of work. It would take me the entire weekend, partially because I drug my feet. And an entire 12-pack of Coca-Cola. But yeah, I wed that every year, and that is in my grandparents' backyard, and you will see the several rows of corn. When we had family get-togethers, we would go out and we would pick the number of ears of corn we wanted. My grandfather would stick them in the bucket, and he always told the same story about how corn loses its a quarter of its sweetness within 2 hours of being picked. And yeah, corn was easy. Like you didn't even have to crouch down to weed it. I wed that with a hoe. But the real bear was the squash and the cucumbers, because they were vines and they little prickly things and they made me itch. And you had to watch where you're stepping, and I always had a overseer, aka Papa, who was, and then that is my row of flowers that he planted for me. You can't really tell, but we didn't actually ever really have to weed those. But we did put those in, the flowers he chose were used as a pest deterrent. Oh, see there's a better picture of them. But yeah, I know about crop rotation because that actually, when I talked to him on the phone after he sent me this album, I was confused as to why the flowers were on that side, because the year before they had been on the other, and that is when I was told about crop rotation. And as a matter of fact, weeding that garden together with my grandfather when I was very young was how I learned about the Garden of Eden and why we have to pull weeds as one of the blights, for one of the punishments for Adam and Eve eating off from eating the forbidden fruit. And so then he also took close-ups of all of my flowers, and he picked the most beautiful blooms that hadn't been eaten by bugs. I'm pretty sure he has this one on a slide. I'm pretty sure I've seen that in the projector screen. So I just want to share that with y'all. I know that some of my family members have given me a lot of crap for not being around at the moment that he died and around the time that he died. But he died 3 months after his diagnosis of esophagus cancer. And that was 4 months after my aunt had died on my dad's side of the family from the same illness. And she also went from diagnosis to death in 3 months. And I was there when she passed away. And I couldn't watch my beloved pup die. But also, I realized that I have, just in this one photo album, so many memories of going to the Moline Co-op and getting seed potatoes. He called me his shadow because when he would be working, it didn't really matter what he was doing. I would be behind him and he couldn't take a step backwards without stepping on me. And when he still worked, he used to tell his coworkers that this is the girl who he talks about, who knows every word, just she don't know she's beautiful. My papa was a very special man. And I really can't go very long without talking about him because he was such a huge part of my life. And I miss him very, very much. And I didn't not come around when he was dying because I didn't love him. I was trying to allow others to love him too. And I didn't want to be selfish. I will always love him, and he will always be my beloved Papa. And I look forward to the day he can wrap me in one of his fantastic bear hugs. And I can tickle his ears. And I can sit on his lap. Which I did. Right up until he died. I miss him very much. And sometimes even corn makes me cry. So, thank you for listening to me cry and reminisce. And remember to never, no matter how angry you are, don't